President Donald Trump slammed Senator Josh Hawley for his attempt to ban members of Congress from insider trading. Well, actually, the way to put it would be to be trading stocks. I call it insider trading because I don't think there's any way you can be in Congress without being involved in insider trading if you're trading stocks. But that's what Senator Josh Hawley set off to do. And just on Wednesday evening, Donald Trump reacted to Hawley's bill, which originally was called the Pelosi Act because it was sort of a Republican effort to play coy about Nancy Pelosi and her husband, particularly her husband's long history of trading stocks that you can imagine Pelosi and her husband, or her husband through Nancy Pelosi, would have some information on that the public doesn't. So Trump reacted to this in a way that totally slammed perhaps MAGA's most populist ally in the United States Senate. He called Josh Hawley on Truth Social a quote-unquote second-tier senator. He said, why would one, quote, Republican, Senator Josh Hawley from the great state of Missouri, join with all of the Democrats to block a review sponsored by Senator Rick Scott and with the support of almost all other Republicans of Nancy Pelosi's stock trading over the last 25 years? The information was inappropriately released just minutes before the vote, very much like all caps sabotage. And then Trump goes on to say, Democrats are using Josh Hawley, who I got elected twice, as a pawn to help them. Hawley is passing a bill, Trump says, that Nancy Pelosi is in absolute love with and playing right into the dirty hands of the Democrats. We're going to get back to Pelosi in just one moment. But actually, not long after this tweet, Josh Hawley came out and said, I had a good chat with the president earlier this evening, and he reiterated to me that he wants to see a ban on stock trading by people like Nancy Pelosi and members of Congress, which is what we passed today. It passed out of committee in the Senate on Wednesday after some pretty fierce debate, which again, we'll get back to in just one moment. Hawley now is claiming that the president perhaps believed it would ban that it would ban the vice president. Here's how Spectrum Local News puts it. Hawley added on Fox News, where he appeared, that he believes the president's criticism could stem from an incorrect interpretation that Trump would be covered by the bill and have to sell assets such as his Florida club, Mar-a-Lago. Hawley added, not the case at all. The president and the vice president, all their assets are totally exempted. I know you all know this because we talk about it all the time here on Undercurrents. Sometimes two people read the same news story and then walk away with completely different opinions. Well, have you ever wondered why? That's why I've started using Ground News. It just cuts through the noise, the algorithmic traps, and the clickbait. If you care about facts over spin, and I know everyone here does, it's honestly a game changer. And that's because, let's just take a look at this example. I'm putting Hunter Biden, Andrew Callahan here into the Ground News search function. You can see it was covered by 34 news outlets at the time that I recorded this. And as I scroll down, the coverage is wildly different from outlet to outlet, and you can instantly compare how left, center, and right-leaning sources are framing the same event. If you notice there's a difference in the coverage, you then also, because of Ground News, have the reference point as to why the coverage might be different in headline A versus headline B. And maybe it's not even the ideological bias that explains it. Maybe it's also the independence of the news outlet. Maybe it's also the owner of the news outlet, which you can actually see in the Ground News feature, which is really amazing. It's a one-stop shop for assessing news framing, for assessing bias. It's all right there. So if you are serious about staying informed, get 40% off Ground News' Vantage Plan by clicking the link in my description or scanning this QR code. Don't just consume the news. Understand the news. That is one of the hardest things to do right now, and Ground News helps you see what you're missing. Now, there should be a different conversation about all of that because particularly this administration's crypto conduct, I think, has been deeply, deeply concerning. And just like the stock trading that's been going on for decades, it's bipartisan. This is completely a bipartisan area of concern. And Hawley has made that point in the Senate as he was pushing for this bill. So it's out of committee. He needs to get John Thune basically to bring it to the floor of the Senate. And then he would need Speaker Mike Johnson to get it to the floor of the House. And then he would need Donald Trump to sign it. So it has to, go through a lot of different hoops for it to happen. It would be really significant because after Pelosi, this was early in the Obama era, it may have even been late Bush, Bush 2, got caught along with Republicans. Peter Schweitzer did a lot of reporting on this with Nancy Pelosi back in the day. Her husband's trading was researched and revealed to have been highly problematic given the knowledge that she may have had. And this is not just Nancy Pelosi. I mean, Pelosi is very, very wealthy. Her husband makes a lot of money on trades. But it's when you're a member of Congress, you are constantly inundated with non-public information, whether it's private committee hearings, conversations you're having with lobbyists and industry leaders. There's just no way to disentangle the work of a politician from insider information. And it's really, I think, interesting that Hawley got attacked by Trump amidst all of this. Let me put this post on the screen. I think this is actually a very good theory from Isaac Saul. So Brian Metzger says, Josh Hawley tells me he had a call with Trump last night and that the president told him that GOP senators had called him up telling him that he would have to sell Mar-a-Lago if Hawley's bill passed. He says Trump still supports a stock trading ban for Congress. Hawley says that Trump didn't bring up the fact that the bill would bar him from trading stocks, that he was just concerned with divestiture, which does not apply to him under the bill. Hawley claims Trump told them he was, quote unquote, exonerated after he explained it. So Trump told Hawley that he was exonerated. And Isaac Saul then posted, GOP senators are so worried about the stock trading ban that they are telling Trump he'll lose Mar-a-Lago if it passes, hoping he kills it. I really hope that there's more reporting on who these Republican senators are because this theory is strong. I'm definitely going to reach out to some folks and see if we can find out who's doing that because this is in Washington, in Republican circles. I don't even want to say it's a dirty little secret. I think it's been reported out, but people know that if you can get a call in to Susie Wiles or Donald Trump and get in his ear, there are very particular ways to turn him against a piece of legislation. He's the president of the United States. He's not paying close attention to everything that passes a committee in the Senate. And so if you can get in his ear and say, you poison him against a piece of legislation or a particular senator spearheading it, take away some of their power because your favorability with Donald Trump in the Republican Party is a huge source of your power. And Trump isn't entirely incorrect that he helped get Hawley elected a couple of times. Hawley wrote a populist wave, and Hawley's populism goes back to his, I think it was Yale thesis about Theodore Roosevelt. He's far from somebody who's been one of those kind of people on a journey. He's less of a J.D. Vance and more of somebody who came to this long ago, before the Trump era. But Hawley made a lot of the Trump moment, and has now been elected twice in the state of Missouri, and has managed to be pretty successful, and is a hardcore economic populist that goes beyond people on the committee that you saw, like let's say Rick Scott. So I think there's a pretty strong argument to be made that what happened is Republican senators don't like the Hawley bill, called up Trump. One of them was able to get a call in with Trump, say that Hawley's bill was doing Nancy Pelosi's bidding, and would, cause Trump to have to divest Mar-a-Lago. And that's the way, it's dirty. That's the sad thing about Washington politics. That's why people like the idea of draining the swamp. This is how things work. So speaking of Nancy Pelosi, Jake Tapper asked Nancy Pelosi about her position on this bill, and boy, did she get uncomfortable. Let's take a look.
Let me just read what he said. I'm sorry that we had some sort of technical issue. Nancy Pelosi became rich.
Why do you have to read that? We're here to talk about the 60th anniversary of Medicaid. That's what I agreed to come to talk about.
Yeah, but I wanted
what that means in the election.
I wanted to give you a chance just to respond. He accused you of insider trading. What's your response to that?
That's ridiculous. In fact, I very much support the trading of members of Congress. Not that I think anybody's doing anything wrong. If they are prosecuted and they go to jail. But because of the confidence it instills in the American people, don't worry about this. But I have no concern about the obvious investments that had been made over time. I'm not into it, my husband is, but it isn't anything to do with anything insider. But the president has his own exposure, so he's always projecting. He's always projecting. And let's not give him any more time on that.
Okay, so what you saw just then was Pelosi herself saying she supports efforts to stop members of Congress from trading stocks. Easy for Pelosi to say now, by the way, that she has been in office for a long time while her husband has been making significant money on these trades. And she's towards the end of her career. She stepped down as House Speaker, House Minority Leader. And so now she can say, yep, oh, all right. When the Stock Act was passed, I believe it was 2012, in response to Pelosi and others, bipartisan group of members of Congress trading these stocks, what it basically told them is that they had to disclose their trades in a certain time period. So not that you couldn't do it, but that you have to disclose it. But it's kind of a toothless piece of legislation, which is why we've still seen people trading all of the time, making a lot of money. As Hawley noted, that was particularly compelling, or there was particularly compelling evidence of insider trading during the pandemic. And sometimes, by the way, you don't know whether the insider information, as in the case of Paul Pelosi and Nancy Pelosi, you can't always draw a direct link. Sometimes the evidence is hard to ignore. The sort of A to B, point A to B is hard to ignore. We know somebody had this briefing, and then we know they or their spouse traded stocks, or even their broker, because they don't have it in a blind trust, traded stocks. Even with a blind trust, it's hard to be able to say there was no conversation happening that was back-channeled to the broker. So that's why a ban is just the best way to go about this. But that's another important point. The problem with corruption is you can't always, like, the appearance is enough to weaken public trust and institutional trust. The appearance of corruption, the appearance of insider trading, which you cannot always dispel, even if it's true that you didn't have any insider information, which in many cases is a dubious claim from these members of Congress. That's one of the big problems here, is just the appearance of corruption. Even if you can't prove it, that actually sort of helps these members of Congress keep doing it, because they could say, well, this was something that my husband did. This is something that my broker did. We didn't talk about this in the hearing. I haven't heard from any lobbyists. I haven't heard. These are the types of excuses that have fueled this mania for a long time. So again, easy for Pelosi to say now that she's towards the end of her career and there's a populist wave crashing on the left and the right. But man, very interesting that Republican senators seem to have been privately trying to sabotage Hawley's ban, despite the public looking at a measure like this as just common sense and good policy. That's I think this is an instructive dust-up in Washington about what's going to happen when you try to take steps like this. We'll see what happens. Another way that happens is these bills just never get brought to the floor. Leadership just says, we're too busy. We can't get it in, or we'll get to it, in the fall. We'll get to it down the road at some point, and then it never happens, and the momentum totally dies down. So there are a lot of ways that Republicans and Democrats, of course, can avoid taking a vote on this, or avoid getting a bill to Trump's desk. He says he would sign it. So we are going to see. We will certainly be following it here. And as a reminder, undercurrents.tv is where you can go to get the premium experience of the show. This week, I'm actually going to go a little bit deeper on this particular issue and talk about who some of those senators might be, and go into some reporting on that. So tune in, undercurrents.tv, premium experience of the show, if you want to hear more of my theories there. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube, wherever you download your podcasts, and we'll be back soon with more.